We're here to kind of talk about the general basics of faucet repairs, toilet repairs, a light touching base of the irrigation systems. Normally we kind of show you what's what kind of tools are the most common in plumbing. We can show you a basic installation of the faucets. Mostly I ask the audience if you have any questions. I would love to do a demonstration, show you, or if you have questions, I'll be more than happy to help. Anybody have any questions right off the bat? Any projects they're working on? Anybody dislike plumbing? Plumbing can be a little tough at times. It's one of the only things that if you don't have it right, it's going to leak. You got to take your time, you got to have the right tools. Patience is a must. Everybody gets a little frustrated, including myself. There's a lot of new improvements in the plumbing field, most of which is coming in the toilet repair. They have products that will literally pay for themselves within the first 3 months of use. They literally use about 50% less water. They call it the dual flush system. They call it the number 1 flush and a number 2 flush, a little flush, big flush. Basically, it's a rinse. Very simple to install. 1 pair of channel locks. You can easily do it. If you're not familiar with what a channel locks is, it's usually in my back pocket at all times. They call it channels just because it slides, it adjusts. Biggest thing most people do wrong with plumbing is whenever they have a drain that isn't working, they go to the store and they buy the liquid acid, the liquid plumber. It does more harm than it does good. It literally, if you don't flush it out, it will literally eat your pipes. It gives me job security, although I don't like doing it because it's very messy and it doesn't smell very good. I can start my demonstration with the sink. This is up here. Has anybody in the audience changed out a faucet in here? Okay. First things first, you gotta go to the store and get yourself a new one. It's a must. You can actually repair your old one. It's a little more complicated. The most vital part on the box is all the manufacturers put their 1-800 number, the manufacturer's customer service name, number, address, the model number. Very vital that you have it. If you have any problems with it, you can call them up. They usually mail you out the parts for free. And it's usually first year, 5 years, 10 years. There's a lot of shady plumbers out there that will literally take your part and they will actually call up the customer service. They will literally get the part back into their possession for free and then return it back to Home Depot or whoever. They've come a long way in the installations. Granted, when you're gonna be looking at a sink, it's gonna be on the wall or it's gonna be on a cabinet. You're not gonna have much room to work. Some of the right tools, little guys like this, they have universal adapters inside that literally grab the nuts. The nuts on the water lines, the Rosetta nuts that actually hold the faucet in place. It literally makes your life simple. When it first came out, I was like, what in the world is this tool? But it does work very, very well.
What does that do again?
I can pass it out. What it does is it tightens the water lines. It tightens the actual faucet, the nut that holds the faucet in place. A lot of times you're up in this little cubby space that you're trying to work. And guess what? Even a plumber, it's tough. Without the right tools, it's really hard. Some of the older ones that existed were what's called the basin wrench. It literally has a jaw. It turns 90 degrees. It's hard to use. I don't like using them. They break. That tool over here was literally a great invention. Whoever made it is sitting on some beach drinking the margaritas and all that other good stuff. So, $19. It literally will save you hours on the installation, especially when you have that nut that isn't going to come off. There are some situations where you have that faucet, you cannot get the nut that is holding the faucet in place. That's when you have to literally get either a saw or a screwdriver, but it's brass. It's a very soft metal. You're already going to throw that faucet away, so if you damage the threads on it, doesn't matter. But that's the hardest part. Once that faucet's off, you're home free. That's the easy part.
While you're talking about that, what about ones where you're not replacing and you need to get it off and you get it off? How do you get it off? When you just try to do it and it doesn't work?
Usually, you got to get the tool. Leverage is a key part. A lot of times there's sprays that you can put on. They call them penetrating sprays. They will loosen up the lime, the scale, the rust, all of which occurs in that moist, humid environment underneath that sink. There really isn't a trick other than mind over matter. You just got to get upset with it and say a 4-letter word or two, and it usually does come. The lime, the scale, the rust do make it hard to get off, but the lubricating penetrating oil really, really can help.
Something other like WD-40, something specific?
They literally have catalysts, things that they literally call penetrating oil. Lubricating oil. It's WD-40, household oil, anything to help lubricate it to make that starting to go. Sometimes you need 2 people, one to hold the faucet, one to actually be underneath there.
Is there any difference between oil and plumbing penetrating oil?
No, same exact thing. Yep. Yep. They've gotten smart over the years. Most faucets, whether they were built back in the 40s, the 50s, always came with brass. It's a very soft metal. The problem is if you use brass with brass, similar materials like to bond together, especially with the soap, the lime, the scale, the rust, all of which makes life difficult when it comes to replacement. They've gotten smart. They make plastic ones now. They don't bond together like that. This is the Rosetta nut, that tool that you just looked at. It's got basically 4 teeth on it. The tool literally grabs those 4 teeth, makes life very simple. This is another one, American Standard. They literally made plumbing very simple for the average homeowner. Most people don't have the right tools. They're unsure about what they're doing. What this has is what's called the Quick Connect. Have you ever had the old faucet where you're pulling the trip lever and it's just not lining up? The linkage isn't working. You get frustrated. They took human error right out of the equation. It's literally a quick plug it in, 2 turns, it's done. You literally just pull the lever. Oh, that one's not screwed in. But those 3 turns, it's very simple. There's no human error in the equation.
So if you want to pull that out for something, like if you're in the bathroom, you want to clean the drain, the hair out, you have to pull that thing off.
That's a really good question. I haven't done that. Actually, it's just clipped into place. It would literally just pull up and out. Actually, it is just hooked into place. They do actually sell a tool. It's called a Zip-It stick. It's a very soft, pliable material that will bypass right down here. You don't need to remove the stopper. It literally goes down, grabs the hair. That is the majority of the time where all plugs come from, whether it's in your tub, your sink. They literally catch on all the little mechanisms inside here. The Zip-It stick is about 20 inches long. It does actually make it right down into the trap. You can literally pull the hair right up and out. Have a bag, a bucket, rubber gloves. It's not going to be a pretty sight when it comes out. What's that?
At home, I guess that you just outside into the wall, I can get that.
You can remove
section off.
the trap?
Yeah, trap.
Yep.
So I can take that off and then make sure if you just come from outside and check, be sure I got it all. But
That's a good idea.
so the Zip stick, that's what it's called.
Yep.
And the name brand.
It's called the Zip-It is actually the manufacturer's name. Yep. It's literally $1.98. It might have gone up to $2.02, but it's the best $2 tool we have in the store. It's a wonderful, wonderful product. Yes, yep.
So just in case I might get back over there.
Yep.
If you wanna, if I use it as screwdriver.
That works too. A lot of people use coat hangers. Whatever you can get up in there to remove the hair.
And that tool is, facing down into your office, it has like a metal that kind of goes down and pulls it out. One's for the sink, one's for the tub, and commercials. You can buy it for like $20.
I'm not familiar with that, but it might be a similar product though. Is it? Okay. Do you like it? Does it work?
I didn't get anything out of it, but yeah, it was easy to put it in for our
Sure. And sometimes the plug is actually further down in the actual drain, waste, and vent.
Yeah, it wasn't plugged, I just thought, well, I'll just try it to see if it gets anything,
Sure.
but yeah,
Yep.
it's easy to use.
Yep. Another thing, the instructions are always going to say they require a silicone seal underneath here. It is a great idea to do. It is messy. I like an acrylic caulk better myself. It cleans up a lot easier. You can use a wet sponge. It doesn't leave a residue where silicone, if you ever left that silicone residue, it turns yellow in a couple years. It's hard to work with. The acrylic caulk is very simple. You literally put it on. You can put too much on. You can take a wet sponge, you wipe it off, you're done. And it's also removable. Where silicone, sometimes you have to sit there and scrape, and that can be a whole lot of work. So that is a vital part to help make sure that you're not going to corrode the threads that actually hold the faucet in place. Have I lost anybody yet? Sure.
I just have the one faucet, you just pull it up.
Oh,
Do I have two holes, you think, on the sink?
correct. The faucets are actually categorized in two different ways. They call this a 4-inch on center. What they're referring to is the water inlets, or the studs that hold the faucet in place, are literally 4 inches apart from each other. It also correlates with the holes on the sink. They're going to be 4 inches on center. So if you see a faucet with a base, that's going to be a 4-inch on center. And what I always tell people is if they're doing a remodel, they're fixing up their bathroom, they're looking at new countertops, pick out the countertop first. Solid surfaces, granite, the corians, the things that are manufactured, they're brittle. If you drill the holes too close together, you over tighten things, you can crack them. So they literally spread them apart. That's what the other one is. It's literally 3 individual pieces, the hot, the spout, and then the cold. They're literally 8 inches on center. So they make it so that the actual countertop is a lot more structurally sound by spreading out the holes. Anybody have a question on the 4-inch or 8-inch on center? To do a typical installation, you kind of have to see what's going to go in first, obviously. Obviously, I'm going to be laying on my back. I'm going to be looking up at it. You need the safety glasses because you always get stuff in your eyes. You need to get the locking Rosetta nuts on there first. That's what's going to hold the faucet in place. And a lot of times it does take you to literally put this on, see where it's centered. If you're limber enough, you can actually kind of reach around and kind of hold the faucet. What I do is I get them snug. I literally tighten them up. I literally get it so the faucet is in place, and you can get both of them on. If I had that tool, I wouldn't be bending over. Yeah. This is actually a pedestal sink, or it could be actually a wall hung sink. But what I'm actually doing is literally tightening up the nuts. When they're brand new, they go on really easily. Like I said, when you get the old faucet off, you're home free. That's the hardest part about it. And then what I usually do is go get your cup of coffee or soda and kind of relax and go, you know what, all right, it's downhill from here. Because sometimes it can be a little bit of trouble. So what I do is I got this snug. This faucet will literally move, it's loose. And what you're trying to do is actually line it up so it looks presentable to you. Because if you don't like the way it's looking, if it's crooked on there, you're not gonna like it. You need to literally kind of eyeball it, center it up with the drain, center it up however it looks the best to you. There's no right and wrong. Once it's in that position, you kind of hold the faucet in place, go back under, use your tools. The tool that was floating around here, works well. Tighten it up. Now, once that's done, they got a couple different kinds of water lines. If you live in a townhome or a condo or the multi-family dwellings, they literally have what's called a flood safe. What it does is it has a check valve on here. It senses the speed of the water as it's going through. If you've ever had that disaster where you've been on vacation, you come home, your house is flooded, and one of these is either ruptured or something in your faucet has broken, this will prevent it. If it senses that water rapidly going through the lines, it will literally shut it off. I'm sorry?
What is it called?
A flood safe. Townhomes, condos, apartment buildings, high-rise buildings, insurance companies are requiring them to put these in there. They're not code, meaning that the city or the people are making them put it in. It's just cheap insurance. One of the downfalls of it is when you first turn your valve on underneath the sink and you're filling up the actual faucet for the first time, they turn that valve on too quickly, it trips it. Not to fear, you can literally loosen up the nut, just a couple turns, you let it so it has ambient air back into the system, it resets it. You tighten it back up, you're ready to go again. Turn the valve on slower and it'll work just fine. But a lot of times they have these new valves called quarter turn valves. This is what's called a multi-turn valve. They've really worked well. They've been around for the ages. It's the industry standard. The problem is there's literally a flat washer that the water has to bounce off of and come back up. All water has dissolved minerals in it, suspended pieces of pipes, the water mains, pieces of brass, the debris. It literally collects right on here. It makes your water pressure dwindle to nothing. If you have a faucet that isn't working very properly or it has 0 for water pressure, this is my first spot I would look. Literally replace it. There's literally 3 different ways they attach. This one screws on. There's another one that compresses on, another one that solders on. You have to find out which one you have. And usually what I tell people is do your homework, figure out what it is, because I could sell you all 3. It's not the end of the world. They're about $5, $6 each. You can return the ones that you don't use. It's called the shutoff valve. Now, yep.
To that flood safe.
Yep.
Is it, because obviously it's not a check valve, because it does allow the water to flow backwards, doesn't it? So what, is it a ball? Is it, how does that process?
There's literally a turbine in there. And what it is if the turbine spins too fast, it literally spins off and it shuts the little check valve in there.
So then you have to replace the whole thing?
Nope. You literally have to loosen the nut, shut the water off.
Back down.
Shut the water off. You're kind of going to loosen it up like you're going to remove the water line from this shutoff valve. And by doing that, you're allowing ambient air pressure back in. It resets itself. You can turn the, yep, it's very simple. Now, in the last 5 to 10 years, they come out with what's called quarter turn valves. There's no rubber washer in there for the minerals and the sediment and all that to collect on. This one doesn't fail. This one will fail in 5 to 10 to 15 years, depending on your water quality. It's literally 50 cents more. It's a huge, huge investment.
It'll just ease the quarter turn open.
This is in the on position. That's off. It literally turns 90 degrees. Yep.
If you use one of those, check one of these hoses,
Yep.
you said you don't want to ease the pressure back in, you're still able to ease with that quarter turn.
Correct. This is the culprit that trips the flood safe device because you can literally turn it on really rapidly and it trips it immediately. You don't get any water out of it, not even a drop. They come with all 3/8 compression. That's an industry standard. Plumbing's, they're finally getting smart. They're making things a little bit easier on us. I shouldn't say all, about 80 to 90% of all water lines will come with this 3/8 compression. It literally screws right to the top. Makes life very simple. Nope. All of these braided stainless steel hoses literally have rubberized ends. And myself included, I'm guilty of this too. And what human error says, or human philosophy says, if one's good, two's better. And what humans do is they literally tighten things way too tight. What the manufacturers recommend is literally get it tight, grab your wrench, you literally give it just a little turn, just past hand tight, turn on the faucet. If it leaks a little bit, give it a quarter turn. If it still has a drip, another quarter turn. Once it stops dripping, you're done. Humans are a lot stronger than the rubberized washer in here. You can literally just make this washer in here dwindle down to nothing and you'll never get it to seal again. So if you can keep that in mind, take your time, just little increments of tightening. Makes life very simple. If you want to pass that around, this is the multi-turn. That's the industry standard. That's the actual. You do not with the new, any of these stainless steel braided hoses. They all come with rubberized grommets inside on both ends. Makes life very simple. You don't need Teflon tape. You don't need that pipe joint compound. A lot of people still do when they have trouble after they've tightened them up too much, and now all you're doing is adding more bulk into the situation, making things not seat right. The best thing to do is if you over tighten it, get yourself a new one. It's literally cheap insurance. It might hold for a year, and you might have to go back and change it out later. Yep, yes sir.
That water hose apparatus, do you have something like that on for a washer?
We do, yep. We have them for washing machines.
That's a really great tip.
That is a huge one. The industry always uses,
System on that?
yes they do, yep. And it's called the flood safe washing machine hose, yep. Yep,
For the supply line too?
yes they do, yep, yep. You gotta be careful on the automatic washing machines. They have solenoids in them. There are some newer models that have very rapid electric solenoids. Some of them work, the majority of them work, but there are a couple models out there that they just don't like that flood safe. And you don't know until you actually use it. You can actually return it if it doesn't work. Home Depot has no problem with that because we don't know the models either. Yes.
If you have a house and you just turn off the source of the water,
The water main, yep, yep. And then what most people don't do after they turn the water main off is go upstairs, turn your kitchen faucet on, just leave it on. What it does is it relieves the pressure in the system. That way, in case something does happen, you're only going to get a cup of water versus the 2, 3, 5 gallons that will come out. And that's the part that can cause the damage. A little bit of water will evaporate. Yes.
Question, let's say you're going on vacation,
Yep.
you turn on the main water, turn on all the faucets, so you take all the water out.
Yep.
And also turn off the water line to the water machine. You won't have any problems with water unless it's the main one going on, correct?
Correct. Yep.
That's a city issue. Well, you just call it city.
Yes, if it's in your home, it's kind of a gray area.
Well, if you turn off all the water and then it will kind of explode near the main water line you turn on, I don't think it'd be the house owners, about.
That's something that we'd have to do some talking with the city and or the homeowner. It's hard to say who's really at fault. It's hard to say.
I have one question on this.
Sure.
My water meter
Yep.
comes to the house, I have a faucet before it and a faucet after.
Yes.
Doesn't make any.
No, you always want to do the one above. Therefore, the one below.
same level, so the one coming in from the outside.
Yeah, yep. The one they call that the street side shutoff. There's one on the other end of the meter, and that's actually your house main shutoff. You always want to start there first, because there's always valves that fail. They just don't shut off. That way you have a backup plan.
Turn them both off.
If the first one doesn't work, turn the second one off. Yep. Yes.
So let's say you crawled into your bathroom vanity and you are now looking at the underside of your sink.
Yep.
And you have copper pipes that connect to your sink.
Yep.
And you don't have any shut-off valves in sight.
Yep.
This isn't all flame at this point.
Yep. And back previous to 1970, that's what the industry, the plumbing code said, that did not require any type of shutoff valves underneath the fixtures. Now they enforce that. You have to.
So what do you do if you want to get rid of that?
They got
Since
two.
you got those fixtures, you gotta shut off the water, you get a hacksaw. I'm all good with that, but how do I connect something pretty like this stainless steel braided hose to a
Yep.
piece of copper sticking out of the wall?
The valve that's going around, there's, like I said, there's two different kinds. The one that requires mechanical connection, where they call it compression. You're going to literally have to have 2 wrenches. You're going to have to tighten the faucet onto it. They do also have a new technology called a solderless connection, where it literally, you can, if you use a copper tubing cutter, a saw will actually produce burrs on the outside of the pipe. These new valves literally have sealed O-rings, stainless steel teeth. You can literally just push it on, you're done. The hardest part is cutting the copper. It literally can be done in about 30 seconds.
You trust
Yep.
us?
Yeah, I have one in my own house. I've had it there for 12 years. When it first came out, I'm like, I like to test things, and it's in a visible spot, and if it ruptures, it's near a floor drain, it's not gonna get my house wet. But it's been in there for 12 years. It's working wonderfully. Yep.
You can only use those in an exposed location.
There are some cities that do have, they don't require any of those type of fittings. They do allow them to be buried within the walls. They want it pressure tested, hydrostatically tested, but they want you to actually be comfortable with you using them before you actually encapsulate them. Minneapolis, St. Paul, it is wise to check with your inspector before you bury them in the wall. But they are very reliable. They do work really, really well.
And it's called what?
The manufacturer that we use at Home Depot is Shark Bite.
Shark?
Yep, just like the shark. And why they call it that is they literally have stainless steel teeth. If you push your finger in there, you're not going to be very happy because it's going to make some teeth marks on your finger. And it's going to be hurting to be pulled off. But like I said, they're very simple to use. The one trick about them is you need to mark it 1 inch. What it does is it provides a visual aid to see that you have it on far enough to make sure the O-rings are sealed on the actual pipe. Once you do that, it's downhill from there. It's very simple.
For many years last century, converted full panels, multi-turn.
Yep.
Sounds like I should be getting those replaced.
If your water's working fine, it's not leaking, the old rule of thumb is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if you want preventative maintenance, absolutely.
I know, because I remember we had a little car, and then we had the steel old one, and then now you know you have that flexible bed one, before you had a solid steel one, remember?
Yep.
We had that, and then ours turned over, because our car said, well, now the code is flexible, so you turn them all into flexible code.
It's a matter of personal preference. They still use, they still actually use those brass, flexible, rigid pipes for the supply lines.
Well, this is stainless steel ones.
Oh, okay. For the flexible one, right?
Yeah, we got the flexible one now.
Yep.
And you put turns on, we got those,
Yep.
on all of them now.
Yep.
Updated.
Very wonderful. They do work really well. The water line. Once the nuts that hold the faucet in place are tight, it's a matter, and there's that rigid tool that went around. It does have the size appropriate adapter to actually tighten this on. So you're not, if you can notice here, there isn't much room to work. The plumber's channel locks trying to get this up in here, non-existent. It doesn't work. That's why they came out with that tool. That's why they also have the basin wrench.
That tool is really a good idea.
It really is. It really is.
Plumbers are buying that.
Yeah, I think I own 3 or 4 of them. One in each vehicle, because I always seem to forget mine at home when I need it most. But basically, you get it on. And the trick, plumbers have it a little easier. If they're replacing a sink, they'll do as much work outside the actual vanity as they can before they drop it into place. So they'll have all of this hooked up. We'll have the drain done. The least amount of time laying on your back, the better. We'd rather look in and grab it, touch it, tighten it, something that you can see. But that's the hardest part about the water line. Very simple, just hand tight to begin with. Turn the water on. If you have a drip, you grab the tool, whatever you can. A lot of times you can grab a little wrench, you can tighten them up. There's a little room in there to work. The drain assembly. Some faucets actually come with a foam type seal. Anybody know the reason why? Have you ever had that old culture marble vanity top and there's always that yellow ring that is around basically the drain assembly? The plumber's putty is oil based. That culture marble is porous. It literally will absorb the oil, discoloring that white vanity top to now a nice lovely yellow. They've come out with a foam. Once it squishes down, it makes a wonderful seal. Very simple. Comes from the manufacturer. Some manufacturers put them in, some don't. If it doesn't come with the foam, you need to put a seal there. Silicone is a much wiser choice there. It's messy. If you don't have that, then you got to go to the old reliable plumber's putty. To put them in, you slide it in the rubber washer. It's beveled. The beveled edge always goes in to the actual void here. It just gives you more surface area to actually tighten up, to actually get your seal. And this is the part where I wish I had a third hand. What's that? No, we got it. It's all good, thanks though. Everything is coming plastic nowadays. The old ones used to come all brass, chrome plated, really nice, very rigid. You could tighten them up and tighten them up. The problem is human error again. People like to over tighten things. This is China. If you over tighten it, you have literally 2 pieces of brass. You squish it hard enough, you're going to crack it. I've been in a couple of places where you see all the spider webs coming through that porcelain, and it's like, you know, I know what that's from, but it is what it is. So with the plastic, what you're trying to do is literally get it hand tight. Again, just a little bit past. If it leaks, give it a little bit more. They do make them very rigid. They are high density resin plastics. They do actually can support quite a bit of torque.
Does that tool do that?
Unfortunately, it does not, and that's when, back to my channel locks. Yep. Now, with American Standard, because you have this long, flexible cable, the cable-driven drive assembly, it doesn't matter where you have the actual opening. You could have it off to the side, you could have it in front. It comes down to visually. If you like the way it looks, great, more power to you. If it's off to the side and doesn't bother you, run with it. It will work either way. The other,
What opening are you talking about?
hard to see, but there's literally a little spot here.
And that is for?
The quick, yep, and it doesn't matter which way you grab it. You can literally do this blind. You just kind of get it there. You literally get it started. You turn it, you're done.
Fantastic.
And it works every time.
Awesome.
Yep, very simple. It's only on American Standard though. Pretty soon, once our patent's up, I pretty much guarantee most manufacturers will be going to this technology. It's literally, yep. So then from this point, it would be the trap. And that's sometimes the hardest part about what most people don't like touching is where the water will collect. It's called the P trap. It looks like the letter P. Plumbing is a very simple technology. They label things in many funny ways. If it looks like the letter P, they call it a P trap. It just, I always wondered why they called that until somebody actually said, well, look at it from this way. It looks like the letter P. So all of them have seals. If you have a metal trap, it requires a rubber washer. If it's plastic, it's a plastic washer. All of which have what's called ferrules. That's this little ring that comes inside all those little nuts. They're cone shaped. The way it was taught to me is you point in the direction of where the water's going. That way you can't put it in backwards. If you put it in backwards, it's gonna leak. You want it so that the simple beveled edge goes deep into it so you have more surface area for a seal. All the connections that they literally go to have a beveled edge that it will mate up to. But if you went this way, it literally sits nice and high. If you go the other way, it will literally drop in wonderfully tight. Hand tight is the recommended starting point. You are meant to actually grab the channel locks and give it another quarter turn. Quarter turn seems to be the industry. Everything's a quarter turn. If it still leaks, go another quarter turn. It's meant to be simple. A lot of people like to add the Teflon tape, the sealants, the silicones, all of which just make things messy. You're wearing it, it's on your tools. It's just, they're sealless. They don't require anything.
Marvin, I've heard about the trap, but how does it function?
What, the trap?
Yes, what does it do?
The trap is based on, and I wish I would have brought one, 2 level points. There's literally a U-shaped part of the trap. The water comes in, it will literally displace the water in the trap. The trap will literally drain some of the water out that now came into it. What most people pour the liquid plumber into their trap, the liquid plumber is heavier than water. It literally just stays right in the trap. Another thing most people do wrong is they let that just sit in there for hours. It literally burns a hole in it, come back, and you got it all over your cabinet now. It's meant to literally be flushed out immediately after you pour it down. The chrome is a soft metal. The liquid plumbers, the hair drain grease removers, it's an acid. It will literally burn your chrome. It will literally make it look like a dull brown to kind of a very weird color. It eats chrome, so you need to wash it out immediately. Traps are very simple. It literally is just, it's a displacement. As the water comes in, it pushes the other water out. It maintains itself. Floor drains are a culprit. If you're not using them, the water will evaporate, therefore causing the methane gas to come up and out. You'll get that funny odor and you go, where's this coming from? So periodically I go around in my own house and I dump literally a couple cups of water down each trap just to make sure they're filled. A way of telling if the trap is low on water, it makes a gurgling noise. It'll literally kind of burp at you, so to say. And all that is literally the plumbing system is pulling air from that trap.
What's the purpose?
Keep bugs out and methane gas.
Yes, it's, so it doesn't reverse back.
Correct, correct,
Water blocks.
correct. Bugs don't like to swim, especially ones in the sewer. They don't like to swim. They'll stay on the top side of the pipes. They call them sewer flies. Every house has it, whether you have your own septic system or your own city sewer. They're literally black bugs that literally just live in there. You don't want them around your house. The sewer gas is another one. Not a pleasant smell. That's why everything is trapped.
Are those drain, excuse me,
Huh?
So would you do it every so often, maybe once or twice a year, just kind of put water through all?
On the fixtures that don't normally get used, that bathroom down the basement that gets forgotten, or the toilet that doesn't get used.
It's just basically cold water or?
Yeah.
So nothing, just plain old basic water, just how much?
Enough to fill it. A lot of times 2 cups of water is more than enough to fill any trap. A lot of times even a pop can. That's about the amount of water it takes to fill a trap. Yep.
is that drain cleaner, 10-minute drain cleaner, any of them, they're all kind of the same, is that real bad on, because most of the P traps nowadays are plastic.
Yep.
Is that caustic to those also?
Plastic will endure the drain cleaners a lot better than the metal. The metal seems to, what it does is it kind of decomposes from the inside out. It makes it very rough. You're going to get little pockets where water can kind of develop. The water will be displaced by the drain cleaners. It will literally sit there. People come into me all the time at Home Depot. They'll be carrying this pipe with fittings and a trap on it, and there's no bottom on it. And I'm like, I know what you used. It's just one of the laws of nature, and it doesn't happen right away. It's the repetitive year after year after year that you're pouring the drain cleaners down. It weakens it to the point where the bottom literally falls right out of it.
So cleaning a mechanic.
Absolutely, absolutely. Out of all my plumbing friends, I don't know any one of us that actually use any of the drain cleaners. The $20 drain cleaner, the Snake, very simple to use. There's some that are $40 that are basically automatic. You literally just reel it, you pull the trigger, it will self-feed, it will also retract. The less expensive ones are made out of metal. They have a metal housing. You just stuck the Snake into a very wet environment, you pull it back, it's gonna rust the case. Get one that's made out of plastic, the housing. Store it upside down in a 5-gallon bucket, literally let it drain. Take household oil, you can kind of squirt the cable. That will literally keep it around. I've had mine for probably 17 years.
But now if you use it in, say, a sink, don't you were talking about the zippets that you can use with that stone plate, stopper stone plates. If you
Correct.
use a snake, you have to take that out.
You got to take the trap off below. You need to get it at the, yep, you need to remove the trap. Yep, yep. Or a lot of times people forget rental centers. They rent them. You don't need to buy it, especially the mainline sewer cleaners where you have trees, the big maple trees in your front yard. The roots love to get into that lead and they will literally whittle their way right in. What they recommend is you do that if you have the root problem, once a year, get it cleaned out. A way of preventing you having to deal with the de-rooting of the sewer pipes, they have what's called root kill. It's literally a copper sulfate that literally will go down there. Tree roots don't like it. They will literally retract right back out of that. It's called root kill. Roto-Rooter has their own product, same exact product. It literally comes in a different quantity.
So you pour that into your sewer system?
Right into your toilet, flush it, and you're pretty much good to go for the next 6 months. Yes?
Does that decompose just like the liquid plumber stuff? Or is that safe for your...
Can you repeat?
Like you were saying the root kill stuff, you just pour it down your...
Yep, you just pour it right into your toilet. It's actually a pelletized type product. It's a dry product. There is some dust, so if you have allergies, I'd have someone else do it. But it literally just pours right into your toilet, you flush it down, you're good to go.
And it won't decompose your pipes like
It doesn't.
Oh.
Nope. It literally kind of washes down and then gets into your main sewer line.
How is it so effective that it can do this on its way through that it doesn't sit there?
The pellets are actually slightly larger. When the water kind of goes down your sewer pipe, the water will actually kind of run faster than the pellets, therefore leaving 1 or 2 or 3, 5, 10 behind. It leaves a trail of it. slowly to dissolve. It kind of curls up the side, so to say. It likes being deposited in the water where the roots like to find. A lot of plumbing has debris that will literally build up on the inside of pipes, kind of puddles they call them. They will stop in the puddles. They will literally get deposited in there. Therefore, when the roots try and drink from that little puddle there, nutrient rich, once that copper sulfate's in there, they don't like it. It literally kills the root in that area.
So if I go to Home Depot and say tomorrow and I would go find and pull this extra root kill?
Yep, it's right with the drain cleaners, the Drainos, the liquid plumbers.
Our plumbers, so don't put that in there and we don't, and also don't put grease on the drains.
Correct. Yep, correct.
So we don't do that.
Yep.
And it will still have to.
I'm sorry?
Still have to treat.
No, what you're really doing is basically killing the last 1.5 feet of the root. Therefore, the root wants to go somewhere else. It's thirsty, so it's going to go elsewhere. That root kill will literally stay in the pipes for approximately a month or two. The tree literally takes another couple months to try and get back. They recommend 2 applications of a root kill a year, nothing more. That's all.
Just for general maintenance?
General maintenance, absolutely. There is another product called pipe maintenance. It's literally a green bottle, and it's literally microbes, type of bacteria that likes to eat the sludge, the soap scum, the grease that can build up inside your pipes. And that's something you just pour into your pipe or into your toilet, you flush it. Again, it will collect in the pools of water inside the pipes, and it will literally just help you maintain your pipes so you don't have that soap scum, the lime, all the other wonderful things that.
What was that called again?
It's called a drain maintenance. It's not an acid. It's literally more of bacteria that will help maintain your drains.
Like Rid-X in your toilet?
Absolutely, exactly. Yep. Oh. Any questions on sink changeouts, the faucets, the water lines, the traps? Any questions on that?
I do have one that I ran into years ago. It was from a plumber.
Yep.
Really respect the trade,
Yep.
any of the trade.
Yep.
Actually was a person at the plumbing company was talking about purchasing faucets through them.
Yep.
And they mentioned at that time that their faucets were better parts than you would get if you went to a Lowe's, Home Depot, etc. That there were more metal parts in them. Is there?
There is some truth to that. There is also a lot of contractors like to say their china is better that they can buy. That's the misunderstanding. Some faucets, price greatly reflects how a faucet is built. If you buy a $10 faucet, it's going to be a $10 faucet. Finding parts for them can be very, very complicated. The quality of brass, the quality of the plastic is almost identical. If you buy a certain type of faucet from the big box stores and then go to the plumbing wholesale companies, you're not going to notice any difference. The parts that we sell on our shelf is going to be the exact same parts they're going to buy from their wholesale company. That is a misconception. The faucets that we sell in our store are considered replacements. The parts that the plumbers will get are going to be literally new installations. They're going to come with that extra nut or that extra little part that most manufacturers seem to forget. Therefore, there is a slight difference there. Yep, yep. To change out the faucets, if you have a faucet that's dripping, all faucets literally have, if you don't see an exposed screw, there's literally going to be underneath the handle, and they make it in a way that you can't see it, but there's going to be a little spot, whether it's covered up with a little button, red and blue mark, or it's going to have a little hole. There's going to be a little Allen screw inside there. And once you get that off, and sometimes they don't come off. The line, the scale, it's literally the same brass materials. They literally like to corrode everything. But Allen wrenches, it's literally a hexagonal type wrench. Every hardware store sells them. They're literally $5 and you get every possible size. One of our favorite plumbing tools. Once you find the right size.
Are you doing that at the base of that handle or at the
It's
curve?
literally, you literally need to turn the handle towards you so you can see it.
Okay.
But it's literally usually underneath it so you can't visually see it when you're standing above it looking down on it. That's usually where manufacturers like to put them. And it literally just takes a couple turns. You don't have to remove the screw.
Nice to have the drain plug where it goes.
Yes, absolutely, because if you drop that screw down there, I know where you're going to get a new one.
We put it better for what size that screw is.
They're very common. But one,
Should the water be off or on?
always, anytime you're repairing a faucet, unless you like taking a second shower that day, have the water off. I'm guilty of it. I've taken many showers at a person's house that I shouldn't have been taking a shower. And it just one of those things. Once you have the handle off, it's good to note what position the faucet was in when they came off. Most faucets actually have one flat spot where that handle, it can only go on one way. There are a couple faucets where you can literally adjust that handle, and that's so that you can kind of keep them in a straight line. Over the years, what happens is they start to basically, that rubber breaks down, you literally, all of a sudden your faucet and all your handles to shut it off, it's touching the wall. You can take it off, you can literally readjust it on some manufacturers. Underneath them, you're going to notice the plastic stem. There's literally a nut that holds it in place. It's called the retainer nut. The plumber's wrench, the channel locks. While the water's off, you can literally just grab it. Man, sometimes they're easy to come out. But you can literally just grab it and you pull it out. Underneath there, this one is a ceramic disc cartridge. Most hardware stores, Park Plumbing Supply, Home Depots, everybody carries these. Very common, they're literally about $3 to replace. If your faucet's dripping, this is the part that's causing it. There is somebody within the area. Now, I had mentioned earlier, if you have a very expensive, very rare faucet, sometimes you can't find them. And that's why I was saying, when you have your new faucet, you keep your UPC, the model number, the customer service number, their address. You can get a hold of them. You can tell them basically your faucet's dripping. They'll ask for the model number. Like this one is an 8125F. They'll literally say, is it hot or cold? They'll mail it to you for free. It's literally, but you need this information. Without that, they're going to be guessing just as much as you are. What I tell people in my aisles, take this little piece of cardboard right here, get yourself an envelope, a nail, hang it underneath your faucet. That way you know where it is at all times. A lot of people have wonderful organizational skills. They file it away only to forget where they filed it. But very vital, very good. They also have little notches on them. A lot of times they only go in one way. So whether you put it in this way or whether you put it in that way, it's either or, it doesn't matter. But you need to know where that notch was when you took that faucet off. When you turn the faucet on, it's either going to be on this way or it's going to be on the other way. If you don't like the way it is, take it out, flip it 180 degrees. It literally will be where you want it.
You know, I would bet I have a faucet that came out before UPC codes. And so can you get the replacements like at a plumbing supply place?
Yep. Park Plumbing Supply in southeast Minneapolis they sell to the general public. They do get very busy during the week. They're not open on the weekends, so if you can go the middle of the day, you have a lot better luck to have a one-on-one conversation with the people there. Yes?
That's a stem, isn't it?
Yes, it's also called an insert, a stem, yep, or a cartridge, that's the other terminology.
As in old age, you only replace the rubber washer and so forth, but now you replace the whole stem.
Correct, yep. So once it's in place, you retighten the nut, put it back on, you grab a wrench, and you can literally do one turn. At this point here is where I turn the water on. I want to know if it's going to be leaking out this nut. If you don't tighten enough, it's not seated well enough, you can literally, now is the time you can literally retighten it. At that point there is when you're going to literally reapply your handle, and away you go. Now there are some, yes?
I just had a question because
Yep.
our sink is, or our faucet is the kind that's like the plastic crystal looking thing. It's the
Yep.
single deal.
Yep.
Is it the same process to take?
Absolutely. There's going to be a button up on top. There's going to be a Phillips screw underneath it, typically. The Phillips screw is going to be what holds the handle in place instead of that Allen screw. The reason they're getting away from the crystal knobs is basically they turn cloudy, they get really dirty, they're brittle, they break. Not very many satisfied customers with them. What I like telling people is touch the product on the display walls, whether you're going through Home Depot, Menards, Lowe's, any of the big box stores. If it feels warm, it's plastic. If it feels cold, it's metal. Metal will always last longer, especially on the parts that you have to touch. Plastics don't like the cleaning agents. They literally can discolor, scratch a whole lot easier. Yes?
So if you have one of those, I have one of those single ones.
Yep.
And you were to replace it, could you replace it with one of those?
Yes. Yep. As long as it had...
Underneath it'd be the same thing.
Correct. It's going to have the 3 holes up on the sink. It's just going to have the 1 handle out the top. But it is going to have the 3 holes here, basically for the tightening bolts that are in there. Also the trip lever assembly.
I'm sure you got 4 or 8.
Correct. Yep.
Usually if it's only one, it would be, unless it's in the kitchen, it would be 4 for bathroom, because we usually have one in the bathroom.
Yep. Bathrooms are typically 4-inch, unless you have that solid surface, whether it's that Corian, the granite, or any other type of solid surface. Those are typically the 8s.
We got the classic ones. They never sound fancy, and I know how it's because I had to pull it a little top off.
Yep.
And clean it, so it gets all icky.
Yes, it does. Yep. Yep. Any other questions on the sink faucet repair? Yep.
Quick comment.
Yep.
That lever handle is
Yep.
more user-friendly for seniors and for people with arthritis and trying to twist that crystal handle.
Bingo. Yep. You're very correct. The other thing is you can use your wrist. You don't need to use your fingertips. All of our displays have handicap symbols, just like in the parking lot. That means that it's handicap accessible, meaning that any person can turn it on, whether they had disabilities or not. So it's good to know what is the easier ones, but you're right though, the ones that have the small little knobs, if you have arthritis, it's gonna hurt. Any other questions?
You always want to make sure you get the left hook up to the hot water.
Correct. Correct. Yep. Yep. And apprentice plumbers and myself, we sometimes get them crossed through. The other thing, there are some faucets that have that spout that will literally spin 360 degrees. Most manufacturers on the back side of every faucet will put their UPC, a model, or their name on the back. That's to signify what is on the back, what is on the front. They also will do a color coordinating, red meaning hot, blue meaning cold. Red's always on the left. But you're right, it does work better when you know what side is which. Any other questions? We can move on to toilet repair. Everybody knows what a toilet is. 2 different types. Well, I hope they know what a toilet is. The new technology, there's literally in the last 10 years, toilets have come the biggest engineering feat that they could have possibly came. What the biggest thing about a toilet, what makes them flush better? The diameter right here. The old ones, previous to 1990, were literally 1 3/4 to 2 inches. This is going to measure 3, 3.5. They found that by increasing the size, this is called the throat. By increasing the throat size, dumping more water rapidly, you're going to get a much better siphon through the toilet. It's going to have a much better pull. The toilet's going to flush better. You're not going to need a plunger. Most manufacturers, big box stores, they have a number indicating how well they flush. It's an independent study from a company. They don't tell us who it is. They don't want us to know. They want to keep it real. There's 3 categories: good, better, and best. The best is an 8 to 10. You're going to find that at Menards, Lowe's, Home Depot. The 8 to 10, throw your plunger away. The 7 to 5, keep it around. You might need it. Anything less than a 5, you better have it sitting right next to it. And that is what every toilet previous to 1990 is literally at 1.5. This is a 10. It literally flushes that much better. They've increased the throat size here, the flapper on the inside, the trap on a toilet. This is literally now 2.5 inches. It used to be an inch and 3/4. It wasn't so heavy. But basically, by putting all the little bends in here, you kind of look at it and go, what in the world did they do that for? You would think that a nice, what's that?
It's snake through, so because 90 you turn, you can break it, trying to get that snake through.
Snakes still, they still go through here. What they're really doing by making the bends here is they're slowing the water down ever so slightly to create a siphon. The siphon meaning that once you dump so much water down, if you hold your finger over a straw, you can hold the water in there by letting it off. It will literally drain faster. The other thing is, there's literally a 2 1/4 inch hole down here. That is the industry standard. Everybody wants to have the 4 inch hole here. The minimum pipe size that this is going into is 3 inch. People have come in saying that, nope, they want the 4 inch hole here. Doesn't exist. It's the 4 inch or 3 inch hole up here. That's the key issue. The other thing, when they're choosing a new toilet, there's 2 different sizes. Chair height and standard height. The older people get, the less they want to bend down and get lower to the ground. They raise them up. It's a lot easier. The industry is going to it. It just makes sense. You got a chair. Every chair you're sitting on is 17 inches. The new toilets are now also. The old ones were 14 inches. That was the standard, and they always varied about a half an inch, whether it was 14 and a half, 13 3/4. It just, sometimes the china, the mold, how they made them, it's going to vary a little bit. You have a question? Oh. The other thing, when they're choosing a new toilet, if you have a lot of the houses in the area, they're not, some are small, some are large. They have small bathrooms. If you have a small bathroom, stick with the round front. If you have a large bathroom, go with the elongated. Sometimes it's personal preference. It's whatever you like. If you put an elongated toilet in a small bathroom, it makes the bathroom feel even smaller. A lot of people are not happy with that. In just about every how-to book, they show the wax ring, even on here. There's not one plumber that will attach the wax ring to the bottom of the toilet like they show here. They will literally mount it to the floor. Water goes down. It finds the easiest, lowest spot to go to first. If you mount it to the toilet here, there's literally a 6 or 8 inch collar that it's going to sit on. If you're not perfectly centered on that spot, you're going to have a leak. It's not a good choice. They come literally 5/8 of an inch to 3/4 of an inch thick. It's the bare minimum. They actually sell one for $3.94. That's literally twice the thickness here. More wax, the better the seal. Cheap insurance. I don't know how many houses that I've gone in and literally bought the $3 part, charged them some money to change it out, and it's like, $3, you'd have been done.
So what's the thickness you should buy?
They call it the extra thick. It's literally 1 1/4 inch. The key measurement on what toilets sit on is called a flange. This one has a plug for when you're remodeling to not get the sewer gas. Also, cities require you to air test if you have a large amount of fittings that you're changing out. Like I said, when you take it out, it's literally, this one is 3.5, but once you put the pipe or the fitting in here, you're back down to 3 inches in diameter. So when we as plumbers, when we do the wax ring, and if you haven't seen wax, it's literally natural beeswax. They come pre-wrapped because it's very sticky. The warmer it is, the stickier it is. It's very messy, so don't leave it on your dashboard on the heater on high. Not a good idea. But what it does is it literally sits right on the flange. The key measurement is if you have a finished floor and this flange is sitting on that floor, 1 inch of wax above your finished floor, you'll have a perfect seal every time. A lot of houses get remodeled. They raise the floor up, they put tile, all of a sudden this flange is now lowered. Sometimes it can be 2 inches, sometimes it can be 3 inches. You want the wax at least 1 inch above the finished floor that the toilet will be sitting on.
So when you do have that remodel, and you can't get that wax ring high enough, do you use 2? Is that
Yes.
feasible? Okay.
Some plumbers do that. Some plumbers also use what's called extensions. There's literally another ring that you can mount. It's the same diameter. It has the same holes, the same slots where the closet bolts are going to sit in, but it literally will rise it up. There's 1/4 inch increments. I've seen people use 12 of them. You can do it. The problem is you have to find a bolt that is going to be long enough to reattach it to the substructure below. If you try and put your closet bolt into something that isn't bolted down, it's going to come up as soon as you tighten that toilet down. So always, always, always fasten it. Yes?
Top of your finished floor surface.
Yep.
And then to the top of that.
To the top of the wax. Minimum. It could be 1.5 inches. There's, on the base of a toilet, there's literally a lot of room. I'll be right. There's literally a lot of room for that wax ring to go. There's all kinds of forgiveness here. It literally will all kinds. I mean, it can literally squish out. Who cares if you can't see it? Who cares where it went? As long as it seals, that's what you want. The other thing, some toilets, you have to look at your toilet base. Some manufacturers actually have grooves inside here. It's just the way they make the mold. Kohler, back in the 90s, they were infamous for it. What we found was literally get ourselves the inexpensive wax ring, fill in the voids first before we set the toilet down. That way we get an airtight seal, watertight seal, and then that'll squish down onto the new wax. On this one, it's nice and flat. I wouldn't worry about it, but it will work wonderfully. Yes?
Did you say you put the wax ring to the floor first or the toilet?
Always on the floor. Yep. Reason being is this is a 3.5 inch, 4 inch hole. The outlet on the bottom of the toilet is literally 2.5. You have a lot more forgiveness here, so in case you're not perfectly centered in there, you have a lot of forgiveness for the seal under here. If you put this on the toilet and you set the toilet like this, you have obstruction, and you also have a pathway for water to leak out. So that's why what every plumber will put it on the flange first. These are the ones that are critical. You need to know from the wall, not the trim, the wall, what measurement that is. And they're not talking the sheetrock wall, the plastered wall, they're talking the 2x4s behind it. The increments are 10, 12, and 14. 12 is the industry standard, depending on how your house is built, whether there's a footing there, a truss, a joist, and whatever substructure is there, they will move the flange accordingly to make it work. When you go to choose your toilet, you can grab your tape measure, you can literally go to the back trim, you can see that this one's a 3/4 inch board. I'm gonna subtract 3/4 of an inch. But if that bolt's at 9 3/4, plus another 3/4, plus a 1/2 inch sheetrock, you're gonna be at 12. So you're going off the 2x4 wall, the 2x6, whatever is in the wall. It doesn't matter what the wall's made out of. You just have to know just about every wall. Sheetrock is always 1/2 inch. Plaster boards are always 1 inch. So if you're at 11 inches, you're at 12 actually, because now you're at 1/2 inch of sheetrock. There is actually a slight bit of forgiveness. How they taught us in the field, we put ours at 13 inches when we're actually setting the flange. We put them at 13 inches off the wall. So when the homeowner goes later in life to actually measure where that bolt holes are, they're measuring either to the slots here, and that's basically where the bolts are going to be coming through, or they're going to be using the slots here. Plumbers like to use this because there's a lot more structure here. It's a lot more rigid. The bolts also don't turn in there. They don't spin around. They also do use the slots. It all depends on what type of mood the person was in when they're setting the flange. But we put ours at 13 inches. It's literally to the center of the pipe. What that does is when you add your 1/2 inch of sheetrock, your 1/4 inch of trim, you go to measure later in life, you're literally at 12 inches. It's very easy for the homeowner to realize which toilet to get. When they're at the 11 1/4, they're like, was that a 10 or is that a 12? You're right in the middle. But if you're at 11 and you're measuring off the wall, it's going to be the 12 because you literally have to add for the wall surface. Yep.
You have to, when you go to buy a toilet, you have to know that?
It's very-
I didn't hear your question. You have to know that.
Mine's a 14.
Yep.
And if you put a 12 and a 14, it's gonna be sticking out.
It sticks out an extra 2.5 inches from the wall. So if you ever put something behind there, it can fall behind there. It's nice for if you have to paint behind the tank, but it's not, it looks funny. Yep. Just about every store will literally, whether it's the big box stores, when they're selling them, they sell toilets as all-in-one. And it's partly to do with the retailer, only because if they sell them individually, somebody comes in and buys just a tank, and if you get enough people to do it, all of a sudden you have all bowls and no tanks. This way, if it's all one product, it's literally one item, you take it out of the store. It's not very user-friendly sometimes to people who have a bad toilet tank, and they're looking for just that part. They're getting all kinds of extra parts. We as plumbers, myself included, they come with the bare necessities. They come with a little plastic, they call it a lockdown keeper, so to say. And what the manufacturer wants you to do is literally use this as your support. The problem is when you're in and you push this to the floor, you can't get it perfectly tight. It's literally moving around, it's spinning. So when you're going to set that toilet, it's moving around. You're literally trying to find this bolt, and it's heavy, and you're trying to find it. What we end up doing is investing in a 3 to 4 cent little extra nut. We literally put the nut in the washer on, put it on here, we fasten it to the floor, to the flange, it doesn't move. So when you go to set your toilet, now you put your toilet on, you have your wax on here, you put your toilet on, You put your extra nut and your extra washer on, and that's not moving anywhere. It's locked and loaded. It's not going anywhere. So for 12 cents, excuse me, you can literally save yourself 20, 30 minutes of just trying to figure out why is this bolt spinning around? Why does it keep popping out? Why is it really ticking me off? It's literally the best investment you can make when you're replacing your toilet. So the extra nut, extra washer, there's literally two sizes, the 1/4 by 20 and the 5/16. The bag, every toilet will come with a 1/4 by 20. It's the bare minimum. There is one upgrade for it. It's literally $1 more. It's literally twice the metal. It'll literally last twice as long. It's all about personal preference. Some people like to do it, some people don't. Sometimes $1 might break the budget, I don't know. But these plastic things, I call them Frisbees. I throw them away. I don't use them, but even with two on there, I mean, it literally, you can be chasing this thing around. If you have that old flange that's made out of the cast iron, they literally rot, the slots become large, and you go to tighten this down and it's spinning around. You're not gonna get that toilet tight, it's gonna keep moving on you. Not a good thing.
So you always use that little nut down to the flange?
I bolt it right to the flange, yep. I literally bolt it right to the flange, it doesn't go anywhere. They do have slots on here. I try and literally to spin it like this. That way you get a much better, it will lock into place. On some of the older cast iron ones, they don't have this groove there. It's literally a flat bottom. It will literally sit and do 360 degrees. It can drive just about anybody crazy trying to tighten something that won't tighten. But simply by adding that nut, that washer, holding it with the channel locks, you can actually grab it down here with the channel locks and then tighten it down so it doesn't spin. Because this is going to be inside the toilet. It doesn't matter if you mar the threads up. So that's a little plumber's trick. Another thing that speeds up time, depending on your physical capabilities, is we literally attach the toilet tank right to the bowl. A lot of people like to attach the bowl, and also now they're going to try and attach the tank to it. Now they're working in a little spot behind the toilet. Once this is in place, you're literally working underneath here, and you're trying to feel it. You're blind, you can't see it. When you're not installed on the floor, you can literally go like this. Oh, there's a nut, and you can literally find it. It makes life very simple. Attach it, get it the way you like it, get it square, make it look. Don't fasten it down 100% when it's out there. You might get it into the actual toilet flange area, and you're gonna notice, you know what, my wall isn't straight. The toilet doesn't look like it's perfectly matching to the wall. It's okay to slightly turn the tank. As long as the bolts are in place, it's down, it's loaded, makes life very simple.
If you have an older toilet and it's working fine, not leaking around flange and fracturing and all that, but the tank, that gasket that you just put on there, they get kind of tired after a time?
Only when they get disturbed. As long as they're not disturbed, and this is a generalization, they usually will last the lifetime of the toilet. Toilets really do wear out in time. Water does have lime, scale, rust. It's that white chalky residue that's left on the faucet or the countertop when it dries. It will literally encapsulate the walls of the trap. It will literally shrink that down, therefore reducing the performance of the toilet. If you've ever had a toilet where you flush it and all it does is just literally kind of spin around in there and you're going, oh God, this is great. It's usually the culprit. The trapway is slightly obstructed. Toilets also have what's called a trapway plug that the manufacturer has to put in. They literally call it a glazing of the trapway. It's the same white finish that they have here. In order to get that in there, to get it fully enclosed, they have a plug here. They install that after the toilet has been completely cured. It's already been finished. They will install this little plug right here. You can usually see it right in the top. On this one, they did a nice job of finishing it so you can't see it. On the older toilets, what they did was they literally pushed the porcelain down here. If that plug comes out, which it does, and they're usually in about 30 years after that house has been around, if that plug falls into here, it goes down the drain, your toilet isn't going to flush. It will literally just sit and swirl the water around. And that's usually the cause of why toilets go bad, is this little plug from the manufacturer when they put in that glazed trapway. You can't see it. It's not leaking. It looks like it's working properly. But this is the culprit. There's a little plug inside. simply by replacing it, replacing the whole entire toilet, unfortunately, that will solve the problem. It's usually not your drain, waste, and vent system, it's usually the actual toilet. They do wear out, and it's usually about 30 years. That's the life expectancy of a toilet. The other thing is, if you have that toilet that's 30 years old, you're using 3.5 gallons every single time you flush. These new ones are 1.28. It's literally almost a third of the water that they used to use. You can literally save a ton of money on your water bill. Installing the water saver dual flush systems, you can literally make it down to 3/4 of a cup every time on the number one flush. Water's not cheap. Cities like to charge, no offense. But there are products that can save you money, especially these. They're very simple to install. They literally replace your flappers. The flappers, everybody know what a flapper is? This is what controls the actual flush. By raising this ledge, you're dumping the water down the toilet tank into the bowl, therefore causing the toilet to flush. If you don't have one that is chlorine resistant, you're replacing it just about every single year. The chlorine dries out the rubber, makes it all kinds of wavy, cracked. They make them universal in the way that you can replace them. There's two ways. This is the easier one to see. Inside the toilet, there's what's called the overflow. And that's this part that you can see the actual fill tube is in. There's a part here that pulls off. And that's what holds that little hose in place. But there's the overflow inside here. Every toilet has that. So there are some toilets that don't have the ears where these flappers will mount to. If you look at the side of it, there's literally ears underneath there with holes on the bottom side. All toilets, the newer ones, will have the little clip-on ears. Very simple to replace. You can take a scissors and cut here and here, removing the overflow tube mounting bracket here. Then you can use the ears so it's not obstructed. It will literally just clip into place. It just sits down there. The weight of the water holds it in place. If it's warped, it doesn't seal. You'll always hear that toilet turning on, turning off, turning on, and it's usually in the middle of the night when you're sleeping is when you hear it. If you were to replace these, there's two components. This is the fill valve. That's where the water actually comes in. The old styles had that ball that floated in there. Some of them became waterlogged. Some of them didn't hold the water very well. They didn't work very well. Now they actually have a float that's attached right to the tube. It makes a lot more room inside the toilet tank, so you can actually repair them a whole lot easier. Easily adjusted. You can literally turn that up or down. There's a little dial right here that raises or lowers your water level. Very simple. You don't need tools. Yep.
Like our toilet, it keeps running,
Yep.
and it just takes a long time to stop running. So what does that mean?
Underneath here, there's literally a dust cover, and your toilet will have it too. It'll probably be under 3 screws if it's an older one, 3 screws, 4 screws. Do you have the one with the ball inside?
I think so.
Okay.
I haven't looked in it.
Yeah, not many people spend time looking inside the toilet tanks, but I do. They literally, the newer ones, if you wanted to replace it, that's going to solve your slow water fill issue. Sometimes finding the parts for those older toilets can be a little tricky. There's the 3 screw, the 4 screw. But basically, they sell them. They're literally $5 to $10 each. These new ones are the same type of thing where they literally can save you money.
What's that called again?
The fill valve. This is the part, the water line actually attaches here through the tank. This is actually the float that adjusts your water level. There's a little screw or a little dial here that you can turn with your fingertips that raises or lowers the water. It's very simple to install. Our cars nowadays, when you fill your gas cap, it has an anti-torque type device. It spins off when it's tight enough. Same thing here. It literally, when it's tight enough, being that there's no porcelain in here, I can't make it click, but when it's tight enough, it will literally click. You don't need a wrench to change this one. You literally just use your fingertips, you tighten it on just like your gas cap. It works wonderfully well. This is, I don't know if you can see this, there's a little blue dot here. There's a little valve there. What most people don't realize is inside the toilet tank, that will literally hold almost 3 gallons of water. It only uses 1.28. the toilet literally only holds 3 to 4 cups of water. So if you have 1.5 gallons of water in here, you're literally wasting half a gallon every time you flush when this is refilling. By turning this little dial, this is a valve, by turning this to half throttle, you're literally going to fill the bowl up slower. You're not going to waste that half a gallon every time you flush. So this can pay for itself literally right away. It saves water. It's a great way of saving money. And your toilet will fill faster. Yes?
So you could, if you had the old style ball,
Yep.
that you could take that out and put that in.
Yeah. Yep. Very, very simple. You don't even need tools to put it in. You need tools to take your old one out. Yes?
You just said something that maybe I didn't quite understand. I thought you said that if you turn that valve, it feels slower, and then you said it feels faster.
Well,
so I'm confused.
The water will literally come out. There's little jets on the base of the fill valve here. That fills the toilet tank. This little dial here fills the bowl. It replenishes the water that's back in the bowl. So to slow the water down that's filling up the bowl, you're not going to waste, because this will literally fill up in half the time that toilet tank will. So by slowing it down, and you can play with it, you can kind of monitor it. You can use a pencil, the little lead pencil. You can kind of see, okay, the water's still above this pencil mark. Well, it's filling too fast. So you can actually shut this valve off ever so slightly a little bit more, therefore saving your water. Yep. The fill valve. Just the fill valve, yep. Yep, they come in, Fluid Master makes this. HydroRite makes this one. Actually, this one, they're exactly spitting images of each other. They literally copied each other. You're not going to notice the difference. This one actually has a special little device that they use. Instead of just dumping the water into the base of the toilet tank, if you've ever taken off that old toilet tank lid, you look, it's really clean where the water's coming in from the toilet tank, but all the other edges are all scummy. They're black, they're green, they're whatever colors on the inside there. This one has literally a jetting system. It's the same type of tube, but they have jets. It literally cleans the base of your toilet tank. Some people like to have clean toilet tanks. If it's not a big deal, they have the other one without the jetting. Almost exactly the same parts. But they literally just have the rubberized parts. You can literally just push them on. That's it. It's a kind of a cool little new thing that came out for toilets.
When you buy a new toilet, you need to buy
Nope.
all your tank hardware?
Nope. Every toilet will come with pre-assembled, all the parts inside, all the parts that go through. There are some toilets out on the market that you can spend probably $40 for the toilet. You're not going to find anything installed. You're going to have to do all that installation of it. All the other ones will literally come pre-attached. You literally just have to make your seals on there and away you go. Yes?
If you have trouble with your toilet handle, you know, ours, you press it down and flush and then it doesn't go back by itself. You have to lift it up. Is that a function of the fill valve?
That is not. The toilet tank lever is literally its own separate entity. It does actually have 3 or 4 spots where the chain will attach to the flapper. All the flappers, every one of them come with a chain pre-attached. So to literally put these on, the hardest part to remember about the toilet tank levers, it's reverse threads. So righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, that doesn't apply on that because you're actually looking backwards on it. The other thing is every time you flushed, you'd literally be loosening that nut every time. So once you remember that it's reverse threads, the nut comes off very easily. It doesn't need to be very tight. There's literally a spot on here. It passes through the actual toilet tank. All toilet tanks will have a square opening for the handle to go in. Every new tank lever will literally have that same thing. It will literally reattach. Some of them come with rubber washers. Those go on the inside. And all that is a restrictor for the nut to not come loose. It just offers a little bit of friction, a little bit of forgiveness. But they're supposed to be loose in there. If yours isn't coming back, there might be a restriction inside there. There might not. It's hard to say. Simply by replacing it. And when you're replacing your toilet tank lever, take your old one off, bring it in. Because if it melts on the side, at an angle, or on the front, it's very vital to getting the exact match. Just about every plumber has tried to alter this in that toilet that there's something in the way. They'll bend it, they'll do this, and you know what? You're now changing the actual engineering on how this is supposed to raise or lower. It's not a good idea. Sometimes you have to. It's not the end of the world. But you literally get it in there. Put the rubber washer in place. Remember, it's reverse threads. Without knocking the dust cap off. It's easier when you're looking. Yeah. Well, it'd only go on one way. But that's as hard as a tank lever, yes.
If that arm, is that supposed to be directly over that rubber thing that they did?
It works better when it's directly centered over the flapper or really close.
I missed it by not that much. I put an extension on that, it works fine.
If it's working and you're okay with the flush,
But I'll pull it sideways all the time.
the biggest thing that can cause the
Put the wrong one on when they manufacture it, or what?
it's possible. Sometimes they actually come broken right from the manufacturer from shipping. And most plumbers, most contractors will literally carry extra ones in hand. That way they're not running to the hardware store trying to replace that $2 part. So it is possible that you have the non-factory replacement. Yep. But yeah, directly centered, you can kind of see how the center of this is almost directly centered over that flapper.
Mine's 2 inches shorter.
It's not the end. If it works, if it's free and clear, it probably will be okay. The air inside the water will drain out of the base of the flapper. That's why you're going to see all holes inside of the flappers. The water will drain out first, therefore creating an air pocket. The air pocket will help float it up. It's actually engineered for a specific amount of time to get the 1.28 gallons of water to go through that throat. So have them tight, but not so tight that it's actually raising the flapper up. You want a little bit of forgiveness there.
I have a problem with my chain and that the flapper kind of catches.
Okay.
And so all of a sudden I hear this, I flush it, I'm getting ready to go and the toilet's running, so I gotta go back in. And I've been living inside my toilet and literally pulling that chain to unhook because the V part on the flapper is catching on the edge. So is my chain too loose that it's catching?
It's possible. Has the flapper been replaced?
It's all pretty brand new. I was thinking maybe I'd take a pliers and try to pinch it, but I'll probably end up replacing it.
You're talking about that little triangular shape right at the top of the flapper?
Real tiny little piece of metal.
Yep.
And the chain just catches, and it's just enough to leave it open.
Your chain is too loose.
The chain is-
Yep. What's happening is it's falling down. It's kind of getting kinked, the chain.
Caught in there.
Yeah, it's kind of getting caught in there, yep. And it's probably not allowing it to actually set where it needs to set. So it can. What? I'm sorry?
The same problem, mine is wrapping around that arm.
Your chain is too loose. Yep. It's literally supposed to be tight with a slight arc. That means that it's not tight or taut. But yeah, you can actually loosen up. That's why they usually always have a little bit of extra links in there, just to help you get an extra inch, quarter inch, whatever you need. Very adjustable. Yes.
Mine will shut off, but you can see a little bit of water still dripping in the tank. You can see the ripples.
Inside the tank or inside the bowl?
Inside the bowl.
Yep.
If I pull up on the ball, it will stop then. But somebody told me I need, so.
The ball is probably purely coincidental. The flapper is usually your culprit.
Flapper,
Yep.
that's the problem.
Yep.
Even though it looks like you don't hear it running.
Yep.
You think the flapper needs to maybe be replaced.
Correct. And it's usually old age or the chlorine in the water will literally warp this flat edge. They're literally supposed to be a nice flat plane. The other thing is the parts that are made inside here, they're plastic. Chlorine loves plastic, rubberized parts. They literally can groove the edge down there, all of these components can be replaced. They literally just unbolt. You have to take the tank off the toilet, and you can replace those parts if the chlorine has damaged that plastic seal where the flapper's touching. What you need to feel is that it's a nice, smooth, even, round circle down there. Correct. If it feels like teeth, you're not getting a seal. Yep. Yes.
The blue tablets, the chlorine tablets that people
Yep.
periodically put in their toilet, that's also damaging that too.
Absolutely.
I had one that was rock hard, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Yep, those blue tablets are not recommended inside your toilet tank. Not even the chlorine tablets are recommended in there. If you're interested in cleaning out your toilet tank, they make a product called Iron Out. It's literally a chemical, it's a cleaner agent. If you mix it with hot water, 1 cup of Iron Out with 1 gallon of hot water, you literally pour it in there when the water's removed out of there. Just by simply pouring the solution into it, your toilet tank looks brand new within about 2 seconds. You don't even have to scrub it. It's an incredible product. Works good in laundry too. Yes?
What's that product called?
What?
I'm sorry, what's that product called?
Iron Out. Yep, it's literally a white dry powder. It comes in literally a gallon jug or a 1 pound jug. Yes?
I was replacing those things like every 2 or 3 times a year. What I found is, when I did that, then whatever that's the thing that it sits in, I just wiped that out.
Yep.
And then it sealed better.
A lot of times there can be some type of scum, some type of water, yeah. There can be sediment, there can be a string, can be, gosh only knows. Some manufacturers actually use that white styrofoam, the white BB things that get compressed together. Those can literally get stuck on the underside of that flapper and you're not knowing it. That can obstruct your seal also. Yes? It does say it right on the back of the package, yes. It'll tell you how to put it right into your washing machine. Yep. If you live up in that iron range where the water, it literally has a lot of iron in it and your clothes are turning kind of an orangish color, you can literally put it right into your laundry and it will literally make your clothes white again.
I've seen a spill in my washing machine, so I don't have that problem. Of course, I live down here.
Yeah, it's usually caused by your water. Yep. Yep. It's usually the people who have well water and they have really bad water. Most city water doesn't have a lot of iron content in it. It's probably not even needed.
So if I get a cabin up north and have a washing machine, I should not have this iron out. Usually like to bleach.
Yeah, yeah. Yep, works really well. Any questions on toilet insulation? Yes?
Getting back to bolting the bolt to the floor, I've got it's got 1 bolt that's loose in the floor.
Yep.
It's a concrete floor. Is that a big deal or is it dangerous?
It's not a big deal. Your toilet can actually start to become loose and actually break the water seal, the wax ring underneath there. If a toilet's rocking, there's no water seal there. You're just getting lucky and that water's perfectly going down your pipe. It is something that you should replace. You are probably getting methane gas out that. If it's not leaking, I would probably replace it before it causes damage. Water can get underneath the tiles and cause all kinds of...
Is it actually anchored to the floor or is it anchored to that little plastic?
Every house is different. There are some houses that don't use flanges. They literally had used anchor bolts, drilled it into the concrete, and then you have a raw piece of pipe that's cut off flush with the floor. There are some wax rings in that situation that have, it's called the Johnny ring. It literally has a plastic diaphragm inside here. It's more of a funnel. It helps center that water to the center of the pipe. It helps create more of a seal. What's that? Yes, yes. Yep, there are wax rings that literally have that seal right inside, embedded into the wax. And if you have that, if you have a concrete floor and cast iron piping, absolutely recommended. Yep. Yep. And it's okay if you don't have a flange and if your bolt is loose and it has come out of the concrete, they do sell replacement ones. You just need to get that bolt out or drill a new hole a little bit deeper and then you can actually get a new bolt in there. They also have PVC replacements that literally push right down into that cast iron flange or the cast iron pipe. They literally have rubberized edges here. You fill the voids with silicone, you push it down. You need to anchor the bolts into the concrete, and now you've got a new surface to put a wax ring on.
What's the best way to anchor the concrete?
There's a product called Tapcons. They're called cement screws. You have to use the carbide drill bit to drill into the concrete. A lot of times they're only going in 2.5 inches. Most concrete's 3.5 inches. If you have a hole, use it. Because it's a concrete screw. If you put too much torque on it, you start wobbling it, you theoretically can either break that bolt or you can literally break the flange. But if the more bolts you have in there, the stronger this flange will be. Yep. 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 Any questions? Yes?
As far as the quality of the flush, you said it depends on the size of the hole on the bottom of the tank.
Yes. Yep.
So you can buy cheap toilets now that have the smaller ones and you're going to get a bad
Yep.
flush.
Yep. The reason I grabbed this toilet, everybody's heard of Kohler, American Standard toilets, Elgers. A lot of them can be $2, $3, $4, $5, even $1,000 for the toilets. There's even some that are $10,000. They're not going to flush any better than this one. There are some toilets that will talk to you too. I don't recommend it. It's way out of our budget. There's this toilet that I bought here is made by Glacial Bay. It's actually one of the industry leaders in technology. Glacial Bay is actually $98. It actually is one of the better flushing toilets we have out on the market. It is a 10. There's actually another one that they call the Niagara. The parts that go bad inside the toilet are the plastic rubberized parts. What Glacial Bay did was they literally have figured out that these flappers don't like chlorinated water. They don't like iron. They don't like a lot of the minerals that are within water. So what they did is they made a flapperless toilet. It literally uses a chlorine-resistant tray that literally effortlessly, what's that? This one is not. This is actually the brother to it. It was where that one derived from. But there's literally, if you take the tank off, there's literally a tray of water. It fills up 1.28 gallons of water. There's literally a tray of water in here. Two things it does. A, it holds the water. On those hot, humid days, it doesn't condensate. The tray may condensate, but it's going to drip back into the toilet where the water is supposed to go. There's some toilets that literally the outside of the tank will condensate, and if your tank is touching the sheetrock wall or the plaster wall, it's not a good situation. Those walls are porous. They will literally absorb all that moisture, therefore theoretically causing damage to that wall. So anyway, the Niagara, it's $98 also, but it literally is the industry leader. Most toilets in the next 5 to 10 years will not have these flappers. They're literally going to go away from it. They're going to use trays. So yeah, you don't need to spend a lot of money on them. Yes?
How well will a new toilet fit into the old toilet? Basically.
Yes, it all depends on where the bolt holes on the toilet bowl are. If you get the right measurement, 90% of all toilets are 12-inch rough-in. There are a few situations where it's a 10 or a 14. 10 is more common than a 14. The foot, they call where the toilet actually sits on the floor. Older toilets were smaller. This is the actual footprint of where the toilet's sitting on that floor. They've made this larger to cover up where the old toilet was sitting because that floor becomes stained where that old toilet was. So they've actually done some thinking. They made this foot a little bit bigger. Brilliant. I don't know who did it, but it's brilliant. So every toilet will have that. There are different styles, different shapes, different functions, but basically their footprints are slightly larger to help cover up that staining of the floor. But are they standard?
In the hole.
Absolutely. That's one of the few things that hasn't changed. Yep. Any questions on toilets?
And that 12-inch measurement, you said that's from your studs
Yep.
to where the screws are on there, or to where the hole is on the bottom?
Correct. And what they're actually measuring here is the wall will be behind the toilet. There, you can either go off of the trim, which is typically a 1/4 inch thick to 5/16 thick, but if you use a 1/4 inch, it's pretty standard. But if you go off the wall to the center of where this bolt hole is, if I can find it with my fingertip right here, that's typically with the sheetrock wall, you're going to be at 11, 11 and a half. That's a 12-inch rough-in toilet. They're actually talking about the studs inside the wall. They're going off of from what they're measuring when they're roughing in that house. So if you're at 9, 8 and a half, that's probably more of a 10-inch rough-in toilet. If you're at the 13, 14 inches, that's going to be the 14-inch toilet like you have. And they are common.
Your tub is right here.
Yep.
You get a 12, you just move your toilet out 2 inches.
And you're not happy.
Yeah.
No. The other thing is if you have a 3-4 inch gap behind the toilet tank, you have the person who either drinking too much or and they go to lean and they push that toilet, they can snap this right off. You want it so that there's minimal movement behind there. A 1/2 inch gap, 1 inch gap, that's about preferred. They're not meant to touch the back wall, but if you're worried about it, put a piece of foam, something behind there to actually brace it. Some people are more accident prone than others, so, and they usually know who they are. So, any other questions on the toilets? Yeah.
A couple of times I unclogged my toilet using a snake, and down at the bottom, I got some transfer from the metal from the snake kind of scratched up.
Yep.
So I bought some Barkeeper's Friend, and
Yep.
that worked out really well.
Yep.
But I'm wondering, do they make any snakes that are made of plastic or some kind of composite material?
Correct. They actually do make what's called a closet auger. It actually comes with a rubberized end with a hook to help you get it up past the actual first trapway here. And it comes with that rubberized boot down on the bottom so you don't get that marring onto the actual china finish. Did it take you a long time to get it off?
No, I put in like half a teaspoon and I just let it sit for 6 hours.
Sure. Sometimes you're lucky and sometimes you're not. Sometimes those marks don't come out. A lot of times specific metals, the steels, the titaniums, they will mark it, you cannot get it out. So therefore they literally make what's called a closet auger. It literally is a 6-foot rod, 3 feet of cable inside here. But it's literally a closet auger. What it does is it literally will snake out through the trapway and get into the drain waste vent approximately 1 foot. And that's all the further. If it's not in the actual toilet itself, then you need to get the actual drain snake. But it literally is a stick. It literally has a handle. You can literally crank it in. But yeah, they make a snake specifically for the toilet tank or toilet bowl. Yes?
One question. What about just like actual water displacement in the tank? You fill like, let's say, pump bottles of sand or something, just displace water. Does it use less water? Is it harmful for the mechanics?
As long as it's not obstructing anything, as long as it's not touching anything, it is a common practice for some people to try and save some water that way. Theoretically, it does work. Most toilets don't drain all of the water out of the tank. Therefore, you're still going to get the same amount of water flushing. It's kind of a wives' tale. You might save a couple teaspoons, you might save a cup of water. It's not enough for you to notice. Over the years, sure, you might save some money that way.
But it's just better than
You're going to have a lot more better luck with it, yes. Yep. Yep. Any other questions on toilets? Yes?
What store do you work out of?
The Bloomington, right out of American Boulevard. Usually there Tuesday through Saturday. I get a lot of people come and get my business card. They literally call me up, and then I'll literally sit and chat with them for half an hour. I had one guy, I think it was 3 hours that we chatted. And we got it done. I didn't get much of my work done, but he was happy. He comes back and he shakes my hand all the time. So that's what we're there for. We had touched base on the toilets and the sinks. What was neglected was actually the irrigation. I guess my speech got a little long. If you have questions on it, I'd be more than happy to help. You can come in and see me. We can literally sit down. We can actually figure things out either in the store or if you want a quick conversation here, more than happy to help. Any other questions? Yes?
We were wondering about kitchen sinks. It's pretty much similar to the bathroom sink.
Almost identical. The only difference is the size here. It's literally going to be...
What about the spout? You have to just replace the spout, the water spout.
It's the same type of thing. There's going to be a handle, whether you have a 1 handle or 2 handle. If you have a 2 handle, there's literally going to be some type of device to hold the spout on. If it's going to be the 2 handle, there's typically an Allen bolt or a Phillips screw up on top, or even a retainer nut that screws off. You have to be careful not to use the channel locks on the chrome products. It literally will take the chrome right off. They do have what's called strap wrenches made out of either nylon or rubber that can get them off easier. A lot of times you can get them off, and there's sometimes you can't. But there's literally 2 O-rings. If you're leaking around your spout, that spout literally lifts off once you get that retainer cap or nut off. It is very simple.
Well, I had the aerator break off threads off of the inside. They're stuck in there.
Yep.
Can't get them out, so I got to replace that whole spout, don't I?
Yep.
Do you sell just the spout separate? It comes with the whole thing.
Right from the manufacturer, you got to go to that one, unfortunately. Yep. Yes?
Shower heads,
Yep.
you know, the big pushes, you get the low flow.
Yep.
And so I bought one, and that's what I'm having trouble taking off the old one. So,
Yep.
you know, in some things I can see you're gonna put a lot of pressure on it. I'm afraid to put too much pressure on it that I'm gonna damage, you know, it's a pipe coming out of the wall, you know, that I don't wanna damage that. How do I get, same thing, just use a lubricant or the,
Most shower heads, yeah, most shower heads literally come with what's called a shower arm. It's literally a bent piece of tubular pipe threaded at both ends, 1/2-inch iron pipe size at both ends. By grabbing the straight part that's coming out, you're going to keep it more centrifugally located versus grabbing the outside edge where you can literally kind of round things out, and that's where you can do the damage. So Instead of grabbing where the shower head is, replace the arm. It's literally like a $2, $3 part to replace that arm. That's the part behind the shower head, and that will literally unscrew out of the wall. There's literally a part that's fastened to the structure or the wall, usually with screws or nails. Hopefully they use screws. They last a lot longer. But if you grab more towards where the wall is, where it's more horizontal, and you grab there with a wrench, you're not going to do as much theoretical damage. It'll literally counterclockwise. It'll walk right out. Yep. And a lot of times they're not that hard to remove. Yep. Yep. Yes.
Got a dual kitchen sink. The drain has a Y.
Yep.
And each sink is hooked to a different drain.
Different traps.
Different traps.
Yep.
And it gurgles like crazy.
Yep.
Should it just be going into one trap?
Nope. Your gurgling is probably caused by some type of obstruction in the actual venting system. Sticks, debris, I've actually heard of dead animals actually just dying in the right time in the right place and actually falling inside the pipes, causing the obstructions. Squirrels like to build nests. Birds like to build nests. A lot of times you can take a drain snake or a rod and you can literally just make sure that that venting system is wide open. A lot of the cast iron or galvanized piping will literally decompose from the inside out, therefore causing more of an obstruction. There are some houses that actually don't have vents. They actually sell individual air admittance valves that you can install behind that trap, and that will eliminate that gurgling noise. And that will help the system actually drain better also without that noise. Okay. The air can go into the system, but the air can't come back out. And they literally sell traps with those installed also. It's not that hard of a fix. Okay. Yep.
And also the kitchen sink, it's like goes into one different kitchen sink.
Yep.
And the water in the right sink,
yep.
And the left one won't drain.
Yep.
So you break the seal with the right sink.
What they do is they literally come into what's called the T configuration. One goes up to this basket or this sink bowl. The other one comes off. There is actually a diverter inside there to help channel the water down. What usually happens, a baffle, exactly. A lot of times there can be something obstructed there. Whether it's a piece of food, it can be part of a knife or whatever. My own personal situation, I have a 3-year-old. When I was building my house, he stuck my utility knife into that pipe without my knowledge. I literally connected. I couldn't figure out why that was draining. So I had to take it all apart. And I'm like, no, how'd that get there? He goes, well, it was me. I'm like, so anything can, you'd be surprised what winds up in there.
It kind of did it since it's new.
I'm sorry?
It's done it since it was new.
It might be a manufacturer's defect. A lot of times it's plastic. There might be some type of obstructed extra piece of manufacturer's plastic in there from the molding. It could be a bad tea.
So maybe start over.
Well, take it out, look at it, make sure you can see through it, maybe pour some water through it, see if it's working. A lot of times what really helps us out, whether it's me, myself, or other people in our departments, visually, if we can see what you're working on, a lot of these phones have cameras or there's digital camera phones. Take a picture of what you're working on. That way we have a common ground. We can actually look to see what people are working on. And then we can say, here, this is our opinion on how we would probably fix it. It helps us out. Trying to understand people's terminology, saying, I have this doohickey over here with these threads over there, and you know, have no idea what they're talking about. So visually, it helps us out. It really does. One last thing I wanted to point out. Everybody has drain waste and vent in their house. There's 2 types of couplings that people use to actually repair their plumbing. The only ones that city inspectors want to see is the one that has a stainless steel band on it. There's cheaper ones out there with just the 2 hose clamps. They're not approved. They dry out, they crack. They literally allow the methane gas, the water to actually seep. If it's behind sheetrock walls, inspectors love to make you change them and make you buy the appropriate one. This is called a mission coupling. It's usually you're on a mission to join 2 dissimilar materials, whether it's cast iron to plastic or copper to cast iron. Anyway, one of the few things that is a must, especially around the area here. The inspectors love to come back and re-inspect you on it. Any other questions? It's Marvin. They call me Marvin the Plumber at Home Depot. Yep.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.